And so many people are looking for some kind of home-based business, a business they can do from home, especially with the pandemic and with just so much, I want to say, displacement. This is a business that I think is so beautiful because anybody can do it. You could do it while you're working, in a beach town in Florida, or you could be, in New York City. It doesn't matter where you are, particularly.
You're 100% right. Perfect home-based business. You don't have to meet with anybody in person. So no matter what happens with lockdowns, pandemic, Omicron, or whatever the heck variant it is, whatever might happen, everything we do is handled by mail, by email, by telephone. So, you don't need to go anywhere, and it's a perfect home-based business.
Welcome to the Jennifer J. Hammond Podcast. Jennifer is a licensed realtor, educator, speaker, and best-selling author. Jennifer's goal is to help you find your yay in every day.
And so I was wondering if you might be able to share another story. I know you've had a lot of regular people, and one of my favorite stories that you've shared before that I love is about, I believe he was a dad who just showed up at your conference in, I think, like Texas. And he was like, I just want to talk to you. I just want to talk to you because
Yes.
he had some success.
Melosi.
Yeah. Well,
You're talking about Melosi.
Yeah.
So he's from Hawaii, and he unexpectedly showed up at our conference, which was really strange for a guy from Hawaii. So my staff said, what do you want, basically? And he said, I just want to talk to Bob for a minute. So they're like, well, why? Because that's, an unusual request. And he said, well, I just wanted to thank him in person because I've been doing the business and I've been getting some really significant monies, and I just want to just thank him in person. I'm like, that's madness. You go from Hawaii, so it was actually Las Vegas where that conference was, but Hawaii to Las Vegas. And so my staff said, when he's on a break, we'll grab him, and sure, he'll be happy to talk to you. So I go out there, and Melosi shows me this check, and I want to say $350,000, something right around there. And I said, what was this? And he said, it's my latest check. And he said, I've done 5 deals. I keep going after the big ones. Now his portion of that was 120,000. So he didn't get the whole 350, but he made 120,000 from that. And I was just amazed because most overages deals are between $30,000 and $50,000. You will find some bigger ones. Like you'll find some 6-figure deals. There are not lots of them, but there are some of them. I have one of my clients working a $700,000 deal that I was just helping out with the other day. But typically you're talking $30,000 to $50,000. We typically take a third to 40% of it, so depending on the complexity. So $10,000, $15,000 on our side. But anyway, so I said to Melosi, so what are you going to do with this money? And he got this smile on his face. It looked like the Cheshire cat, just like swallowed the canary. And I said, what are you doing? And he said, I'm buying my daughter a house. Oh. And I was like, that's crazy. I'm like, you're buying her house? He said, yeah. I said, this is my 4th or 5th deal. I forget which one he said. And he said, the first one, I just paid off all my credit card debt. The second one, I paid off my own house. Third one, I just put money in the bank. Fourth one, put money in the bank. And this one, I'm going to take and buy my daughter a house. Her daughter lived in the Midwest, so 120 was enough to get her a nice starter house. Young woman, she was in her mid-20s, had a new baby, had a husband, and he said, I just want to give them, that gift. And I'm thinking, when you're a family that now has a house free and clear in your 20s, talk about a huge difference. And as a dad, he was really proud of that. Like he just stood up straight like a little rooster. And I was really proud of him for doing that. I mean, it's really such a cool thing to do. And can you imagine being able to do that for your family, to do something like, just write a check? Because, they say money doesn't solve all problems, and it doesn't, but it can solve some problems. And things like owning a house, things like getting through a pandemic without being completely stressed. And I'll share a personal story with you, Jennifer, and I guess with everybody else here too. So this week I'm in Philadelphia. What brought me here, and I'm telling this, Jennifer, because my son. So what brought me here was on Saturday, Remington, a hernia showed up in his groin. It looked like a half an egg was under his skin. So I pushed it back into place, which is a little scary, because you can get entrapped bowels. So Saturday night, that was like 11 o'clock at night. My wife and I were completely panicked. My son is 5, for everybody out there who hears it. So, and he said, my stomach hurts all the time. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so I went on Dr. Google and looked at that, which no one should ever do. So then I was completely panicked. So I then, needed to get a flight. I'm like, all right, I'm getting out of Puerto Rico where I normally am and back to Children's Hospital in Philadelphia, which is the best medical facility I know of. And we booked a flight for the next morning. It was ghastly expensive just because, you're booking three tickets the next morning. It was like $3,000 one way.
Oh my gosh.
And so, but I just booked it. And the reason I was able to book it is because I make money in the overages business. And, I'm going to do what I want to do, not what I have to do because of money considerations. And I had to book a hotel. So I'm sitting here in a hotel right next to the hospital, rental car, the whole thing. It's a really expensive trip, like a $10,000 trip altogether, because we're here for a week. And, and also thankfully we have good medical insurance, but again, that's paid for by this overages business. And my wife and I were talking about it. We're like, what we always really wanted in life is to be able to do what we wanted to do without money really being the consideration.
Right.
And it's not about owning a Ferrari. You've been over to my house. I have a Honda, a beautiful Honda minivan. It's wonderful. I have a nice house for my family, that's for sure. Yeah. But that to me was success and is success. It's like you set the air conditioner where you want it, set the heat where you want it. It doesn't mean you're wasteful. If you want to go, someplace for medical care, you just book flights. If I had to fly private, I would have. Yeah. We were getting here as fast as possible because, when your son's got a medical problem, you're getting there like as quick as a bunny. Yeah. And I think that to me is the benefit of owning your own business. I've also, all week, I've been completely unproductive. We had the operation on Wednesday. Oh. I completely beyond unproductive. But I was able to, the business is still going on. I have staff members that are making phone calls. I have people that are doing all the business of the business. And that's another joy of owning your own business. It has its own momentum. And we teach people how to set up a business like that, where you don't have to be doing everything. Now you can be, if that's your temperament, but you don't need to be. And, even with the overages, we have a whole bunch of things in the pipeline. Those things are proceeding. You don't have to do anything on a day-to-day basis to make them happen. And those are things I really like about owning your own business. The ability to afford the best healthcare insurance, the ability to afford, if you need to fly somewhere for care, you fly. If you have to pay cash for medical treatment, you pay cash for it. I don't because of my medical insurance, but I could. And it's about freedom. And it's about not having some bureaucrat tell you, oh, restaurant owner, you have to close your restaurant. I mean, crazy. I've in my place in Philadelphia, there's a restaurant on the first floor that was closed for several months. And those guys have their rent payment is $19,400 a month in rent. And I wasn't able to say, oh, you guys don't have to pay me rent. I was like, you have to pay rent? Yeah. Because, otherwise I have to pay that money for you. And I'm not a bank. So no. And that's really tough. And I recognize that, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to pay the rent. They still have to pay. Yeah. And I think, I like a business like overages that's relatively light on overhead. It's just, you do not have to have all these recurring expenses. Like my recurring expenses, I have a service that does finds people called skip tracing. That's all of $18 a month for unlimited searching. Not anything significant. The other things are mostly connected just with doing deals. Like when we send someone out to do the signups, that's about $65 when there's a signup. They're not a staff member; they just go out when there's a signup. Other than that, it's just you mail in the claim. There really aren't a lot of recurring expenses, which I also like. So if you're, like when you'd mentioned, Jennifer, having a franchise, I owned a franchise a long time ago, and it was great. I really liked it, but it was a big upfront investment. And when you have to spend $1 million or more to open up a franchise, and all of them aren't that expensive. You could do a Subway for probably $200,000, including the build out. But still, that's, then you're going to sell a sandwich for $5 and have staff members you have to supervise. Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. I think that this is such an amazing business, and I had no idea that was going on in your private life. I'm so sorry that all of that is happening with your son. I'm so excited that you actually are there, that you got to Philadelphia and you're at Children's Hospital, and that you feel like so I have to ask, are things getting better?
Yeah, so he had his outpatient operation on Wednesday. I learned it was the first time he's ever had anything, so I learned in a different way how stressful it is for parents. And I was sitting in there, and hernia is relatively minor, but I'm sitting there looking at these other parents there, and they're dealing with things much more serious than we were. And I thought to myself, these medical people do the work of angels, especially dealing with kids. And I was like, I don't know how they do it. So Remington had his procedure. They released us same day, and now we're hanging out in the hotel. We're going to go for a checkup next week. That's why I have to stay here just to make sure no infection, anything like that.
Yeah.
But he's doing great. And it's a relatively minor procedure, but when it's your son going under general anesthesia, it's not minor. Like, it's not minor at all. To me, it wasn't minor, even though they say, oh, it's safe. The anesthesiologist said, oh, it's safer than driving to the hospital. Yeah. He said that, but I didn't process it that way. I was like, general anesthesia, terrifying. And, there were lots of tears and lots of worries.
Yeah.
And lots of appreciation for amazing medical people. And so all is good. And that's a one-time thing. And that's just, and for anybody out there, if your son has a hernia or anything, it's mostly from birth. It's a small birth defect where the belly button comes in and sometimes doesn't seal off completely. And then your internal organs can get out through the gap, which is not good.
No.
But thankfully we have these angels that work in hospitals that are just amazing.
Yeah. So. Well, thank you for sharing that. I didn't know. I had no idea, and I'm so glad that you came to this interview. And wow, that's amazing. I think it does speak to overages as a business. I just think it's such a special business for anybody who wants a home-based business. And I like the idea that you're touching real estate, even though we're not flipping properties or you're not a landlord or things of that nature. You're still in the business around real estate. And I think that's very special with overages. And again, if anyone's interested, you can go to jenniferinterviewsbob.com. That's jenniferinterviewsbob.com. And you can learn all about it if you're interested in that business. I think it's so important that people have that kind of freedom. And what you're talking about is so special, including, and I'd love for you to share just a little bit about the fact that you moved down to Puerto Rico, which is someplace you had always wanted to live. And that's also because you have an overage business where you can do it anywhere in the world pretty much, right?
Yes. Yeah. So we moved from New York City, and in New York City, this has everything to do with my son. It's not the place to raise a child. We lived at 62nd in Amsterdam, which is right by Lincoln Center. It's wonderful, but just to get to the park was 2 blocks to get to the park, and then into where the playground was about 5 blocks into Central Park. And so it was like moving an army. You're packing up a stroller and you're walking for 15 minutes to get to the park. And, it just was not a place to raise a child. So we started looking at other opportunities, like where should we live? We, of course, looked at suburban New York and New Jersey and suburban Connecticut, and it just didn't appeal to us. And part of it is just, and I'll show you outside for a second. This is the weather outside.
Oh,
so it's like 38 degrees, cloudy, yuck. And so we always had this dream of living in the tropics, which I think many people have. Yeah. And so we heard about Puerto Rico. We have some friends that have moved there. There are people moving down there by the thousands right now. And we said, well, let's go check it out. And we checked it out, and it's beautiful. It's like really family oriented. People there are kind. They live, even the older people still live at home with the younger people. So we have our mother-in-law, my mother-in-law, my wife's mother lives with us, and there it's normal. Like they just don't have nursing homes really, because that's normal and super family oriented. And we moved there because of that. And it's easy to get back and forth in the States. It's like even to get to Philadelphia, there were 5 different flights that were direct for the day. To New York, they're 12 a day. Easy to get around, and there's a tax incentive that if you run a business like we run from there, any business that services the States, you pay 4% income tax instead of the regular federal rate of 38% these days.
Yeah.
We pay 4%. And they're trying to get people back to the island to, to just repopulate it, basically. And it's a beautiful place. Jennifer, you've been down there. It's spectacular, super nice. Every day it's 80 degrees, which I would very much prefer to what I'm facing in Philadelphia at the moment. I don't even want to go outside to walk the dog. So
yeah, exactly. I think it's just so special to have that ability to have a home-based business. And like you said, when you have an emergency with your son, now you can afford to take a very expensive last minute flight and get the hotels and handle all the things you need to handle. And I agree with you. Money doesn't solve everything, but boy, it can definitely help make your life a lot more options.
yes,
Yeah.
that's a good way to put it. And I think for everybody out there, I think a lot of life today to me is about freedom and options. We've had our freedom curtailed so badly. They tell you where you can go to work, when you can go to work, whether you can run your business or not. And it's just, the more you can maximize your freedom and options, the better. And the first place to start, I think, is financial independence, meaning, make your money separate from, like if you're a person that doesn't want to get vaccinated, for example, and I'm not going to get into a political discussion on that, but if you were, for some things, that means you can have no job.
Yeah.
And that's, that's rough. It's really, and I got vaccinated, but I'm not getting my 5-year-old vaccinated like they're talking about. I'm like, no, thank you. But I'm able to because, and on that circumstance, so we had the school saying you have to get your 5-year-old vaccinated. And we said, no. So we have a private teacher now.
Yeah.
And, I don't need them because and I think for everybody out there, it's really good to not need other people who can boss you around.
Right.
I think that's just today more than ever. I don't think 2 years ago we'd had that same discussion, but today there's so many surprising, crazy things that are going on that, let's get freedom. And I think, freedom, it's one thing overages gives you is it's complete freedom because everything's done by phone and mail. I can live anywhere I want to live. You can live anywhere you want to live. As long as you have an internet connection and a phone, you're in business and you can do the business. And it's funny to be talking about freedom right now, but that's what we have to do.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's so important to understand that, again, we have to be able to get financial freedom. And one of the ways to do that is to have a home-based business that actually has low overhead, which we've talked about with overages, but also you have the freedom to work it a little bit or work it a lot, which I think is also, it's one of the reasons I got into real estate in the first place is because I'm a hard worker and I'm willing to do the extra hours and the extra steps because it does mean that I'll have more income. And I think that's so important with overages as well, is that you can work extra and you can work more, or you can work less, depending on how much money you want to bring in. And I just think that that's so, so powerful. So I do, we're just down to our last couple of minutes, and I want to make sure that I open the floor for anyone who's interested. I know, I think John Lee's still here. I was going to see if we start with John Lee as far as questions. John is a real estate investor I've known for years as well, mostly invests in little deals like about land. So I'm really curious, John, if you're there, if you have any questions for Bob.
Good, Bob. Very, very eye-opening. I've done a lot of properties for back taxes. That's kind of what you're talking about. I've done only a couple of commercial ones. I'm very interested in doing that. My question would be, what would, when you contact people, do they ever go directly to the county and try to get the overages themselves and cut you out? Or what is your, I just kind of wanted to know what your maybe standard procedure is. That's my question. Thank you.
Sure, great question. And the other thing I would share with John and anybody who goes to foreclosure auctions, whether it's mortgage or tax, and it sounds like John has gone to tax foreclosures, you owe it to yourself to keep track of the ones that sell for a lot of money. And basically on the way home from the auction, stop by people's house and just see if they want to work with you, because they're at maximum stress at that point. They're probably at their house, and it's on the way home anyway, relatively speaking, if you're there. It's crazy not to. And just write down the ones that sell for a lot. That's not the way we generally get lists, but if you're there anyway, you owe it to yourself. It's like professional malpractice not to, because you see a house or property that sells for a couple $100,000 and you can see what the tax bill is on the listing. When there's a big spread between that, you should stop by and sign them up. So as far as circumvention, surprisingly very infrequent. So of course, part of the procedure is we don't tell them where the money is, which causes its own challenge, because I have to call and say, hey, Jennifer, we can help get you $40,000. And of course, you want to know where it's coming from, and we can't tell you where it's coming from. So essentially what we're saying to them, we say, well, Jennifer, I'm in the outreach department. Our research department asked me to call you because they researched government records and they found a government record showing that you were owed a refund of $40,000. Once you sign up as our client, we can finish off the research, verify it to you, and give you all the data about it. That does, frankly, cause the challenge of credibility, because we've got to work through that. It just is what it is. Nothing's perfect. And that's I would say the imperfect part of this business is just talking through that skepticism. And I think about it as building a bridge. And it means you talk to them. You need to be patient with them. You need to smile on the phone, because we can hear that when people are smiling, and just be patient. Just talk to people. So that's how we do it. And once we sign them up, they're committed to us. They're committed to a percentage. And surprisingly, this has been a big surprise to me, there's not really much even attempt at circumvention. Circumvention. Just said that anyway. At least it's not a dirty word.
Yeah.
There's not a circumvention problem. I think that they're not entrepreneurs. They're someone who's at that moment in their life been kicked really hard, especially if they lost their house, which is most typical. Although it is raw land and all too, but they've lost something really significant, and they don't feel very lucky. They don't feel very energetic. They feel depressed and upset. And if you're there reaching out to them, saying, look, I'll do all the work. We'll take all the risk. If it doesn't work out for any reason, we'll take care of the expense. You don't need to worry about it. That's a really good offer. And again, they're just not feeling energized and spunky. They're not going to take on the government at that point in their life. So that's part of the value we bring is we go, do the work to get the money. We figure it out. They don't have to. And it's not very hard to do, but maybe if you're in that state where you've just lost your house at a tax sale or mortgage foreclosure, might be mentally almost impossible to do. So circumvention actually turns out not to be a big problem. I was surprised at that too. I'm not surprised John asked about it, because for me, when I first went into this business in 2011, I'm like, I bet that's going to be a problem. And it turned out not to be. So.
And I would say the other thing I wanted to see if you could chat just a little bit about is that some states, you talked about it is a lot more complicated. And I think that dealing with any government, especially now because of the pandemic and so many things that have, shortened their hours, or you can only come in and by appointment. I mean, they've really made it so much more difficult for the average person to just figure the process out. And then in some states, you actually have to go through a court process. It's not just by filing forms or whatever to regain that overage. Can you talk a little bit about that and why
Sure.
It's great to have somebody who's experienced doing this?
So one of these things are all state law specific. So state laws control who forecloses on taxes, what the process is, who forecloses on mortgages. Some states are judicial states, like judicial foreclosures. That's the whole East Coast. And a lot of states on the West Coast are non-judicial. They're deed of trust states, where a trustee is authorized to sell the property without a court process if you don't pay. Where it's a court process, then the money is typically in court, and then you have to file something called a petition to go get it. You need an attorney to do that. You need to budget about $1,800 for that work. So we teach everybody, because we've done all the research and done the business since 2011. So we tell you which states, the money's going to be in court and you need to budget $1,800. That's the minority of states. The majority of states, the money's not in court. It's just with a government agency, and then there's an application process. So we teach you which is which. So you make sure you're starting in the right place. Now, we have some contrarians. They'll say, oh, I want to work in that state, even though, I'll give you an example. Delaware is a judicial state. If I have a client from Delaware, there's a good chance they want to work Delaware. Because I could connect with people better. I could say, oh, I'm from Wilmington and you're from Sussex County. You feel like you connect better. So I have people that will do that, where they'll pursue Delaware, even though it's going to cost them $1,800 a case, to process it and to bring in an attorney, but they do it because they feel more comfortable about it. So, we've done all that research. I'm an attorney. I've been an attorney since 1995. So we have research in every state. I can tell you how both mortgage and tax foreclosures work in every single state. We give you that research when you get involved with our course so that you can know. We also give you a short list saying these are the best states with the most overages. These are the ones that you can do with just administratively. You don't have to use an attorney. So, we've done a lot of that groundwork for people because it was a lot to do.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if I told you, Jennifer, we just finished a redo of all the legal research. We just redid it, and it's just getting launched now because it's important for us that we keep up for ourselves and our students. So we just went through and hired attorneys to do every single state, and everything's new and fresh. We do keep things current, but from 2011 till now, things have just gotten untidy is the only way I can describe it.
Yeah.
We'd revised them over the years, but it wasn't cohesive anymore. So we just redid them all. So it was a big project just completed and just released to the public. So
that is beautiful. I didn't know that you did that. And just so people know, again, you can go to jenniferinterviewsbob.com. You can watch a full overview of taking the class. And there's an online class, but you also teach in person too, if people want to come to Florida. I know you're doing an event next month in Orlando, right?
We are. Yeah, we're going to do Orlando, I think third week in January. But some people learn better that way. And for some, it's the same material, and whether you come live or use the home study course, some people prefer that experience, the live experience. I do. That's my preference. Other people like to read, and that's great too. And so we offer both. And the home study course has videos and reading.
Right.
But it's kind of funny. I have people that will do both. They'll buy the course and then they come to the live event and they'll ask me like, well, what's the difference? And I said, well, different experience, same material. And both of them are complete. So, you can do both if you want to, but you don't have to. And it's just fun. I think people like that experience of, just face to face, belly to belly, ask their questions. And I enjoy meeting with people. It's fun. It's fun to, set someone up with a new venture, watch them go off, and then they'll send us copies, their smiling face with checks, them smiling with claimants, because occasionally they'll go out and hand deliver checks if they are so moved to do that. And it's really it's very meaningful. It's a relationship that I treasure to have my students with that kind of relationship with me.
Absolutely. Because you're really changing people's lives. I mean, not only the students' lives, but also those people who lost their houses to foreclosure. So, well, Bob, I just want to say thank you so much again. I am so grateful that you came on, especially while you're in a hotel. Thank you. Thank you. I was expecting you to come on your Zoom to be from Puerto Rico in your backyard, but
not today. Today it's cloudy, Philadelphia, 39 degrees in the beautiful Hilton University City, which is very nice.
Yeah.
It's I was glad to be here, and everybody's still asleep. I'm supposing when I go back to my room, the room will come back to life. I actually brought the dog too.
Oh,
an adventure.
Wow. Which is an adventure for sure.
Everybody piled. We didn't have time to get any sitter, so we just packed the dog onto the plane too.
Wow. What an adventure.
Fun.
Well, I'm glad that your son is doing fine. And I hope that he gets better. Obviously, that he heals fast. You guys will all be in my prayers that you heal quickly. Thank you. And the whole adventure is done quicker than expected.
And if I could, I just want to wish everybody on this call just happy holidays. Whether they celebrate Christmas or Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, or none of the above. I hope they have happy holidays and a happy New Year, and that that the coming year is just fabulous for you in every way, in health and monetary and everything else. And we need to stick together, even though it seems like the place is coming apart. And I would encourage everybody, do think about what you can do to control your own life. And overages is one way you can do that. If you want to know more about it, go to jenniferinterviewsbob.com, and I'll give you the skinny on this business. But I think for everybody, whether overages is for you or not, do something, because I think we need to be in control of our own lives today. We can't leave politicians in control of our lives. It's just a bad idea.
Yep,
so.
I agree. Thank you for that. Thank you. And what we've been doing is every one of the episodes, John, if you'll come off your mic, we always make sure that we end with a yay. So I'm going to do a countdown, a 3, 2, 1. So if we'll do 3, 2, 1, yay!
Yay!
Hi, I'm Jack Canfield. You may know me as the co-author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. And if you want more help in getting from where you are to where you want to be, I want to encourage you to listen to the Jennifer Hammond Show